So, hello, Mr. Timothy Thatcher. Thank you for joining us for this exclusive interview for BodySlamNet ahead of this Thursday's BloodSport X event, Josh Barnett's BloodSport X event. So, we'll get right into it. So, for those who don't know, tell us how you got into the wrestling business, and were you always a fan? And if so, who were your inspirations looking up to get into the sport?
My adventure into pro wrestling was a little different than most. I always say I got drafted, maybe even coerced into it. This was never a plan. I didn't ever want to be a professional wrestler. I did enjoy it though. I was going to a local independent. The short version is I was going to a local independent company called Supreme Pro Wrestling in Sacramento, California. At the time, I wrote for a newspaper because I was a journalist.
Oh, wow.
And they told me to do a story on a local business. And I went, what's a weird local business? How about an independent wrestling company that's been around for 4 years? So I talked to the head man, which was the big ugly JD Bishop. And once we had finished the interview and all this, I was like, I'm coming to you guys' shows anyways. Is there anything I could do for you guys? Because at the time, even though I was writing for a newspaper, it was a very low part job. And I was working another job as well. So necessarily money wasn't the thing. So it was like, I'm coming all the time. How do I get in for free? and so it was, they're like, oh, you can come set up the ring. I was like, oh, I'll set up the ring. And then they were like, we need referees. And I was like, that would be amazing. How fun would that be? I could be a pro wrestling referee. I was a long, skinny fella. I wasn't really the presence that I currently have. So I wasn't very threatening at the time. So it was like, oh, yeah, referee, that's good. So I thought, well, I'm going to do this for a couple of years and then move on with my life. They were like, Big Ugly was like, you have to come to all the training, though. It's very important. You do all the training no matter what, whether you're a referee, wrestler, or, yeah, no problem. Okay. So I was doing the training and maybe I was refereeing small independent companies around California. Maybe that was for about 9 months or so. And then Big Ugly went, you're going to have your first match next month. And I said, excuse me? He's like, yeah, you're picking this up too well. So you're going to start wrestling. And I'm like, oh, okay. Now, there's two ways we can look at this, and maybe the truth is somewhere in between. There's the romanticized version, which I took at the time of this man sees something in me. He believes in me. There's something there. When really it might have been, hey, this guy's showing up to every one of the trainings and we're only charging him the ref fee, which is very small. We could get a wrestler training fee out of him. And so we could get a lot more money out of this guy. Tell him he's going to wrestle. Oh, okay. So, so that's how I became involved in that. And just, it was one of those things where it was like, I never thought this was going to be a thing. So every step that I've taken has been more than I ever imagined. So I'm very grateful that it all kind of worked out.
Very much so, yeah. Very much so. I thought because obviously same writing, it's full-time job doing on the side. That's pretty awesome that then you're in the crazy world of professional wrestling, which we all know and love. So yeah, that's pretty awesome story. That's a very unique one as well. Definitely. 100%. So who, apart from as you said, Big Ugly, who were the people that took you in and that you learned a lot from in your early part of your career to give you the style that you have now, to say?
So that was like Big Ugly was a start. He's my original trainer.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's independent wrestling and we all have wonderful adventures, we only had a ring for 2 weeks. The first 2 weeks I started training. Then we got kicked out of the building, and the rest of my training was in Big Ugly's garage on just mats. So therefore, your focus goes in the direction of how I wrestle, because I'm a man that had to work very hard to be mediocre. So what are we training? Because we only have mats. So, okay, you're training grappling, you're training strikes, you're training straightforward wrestling because that's what we have. We're not going to jump off the washer machine and learn our top rope moves, right?
Like me as a kid.
Yeah, exactly. This was what our focus was. So therefore, I was like, okay, well, I need as much work as possible on whatever I'm doing. So if this is what we're focusing on, this is what I'm going to do. But also at the time, I always state two big events, like match wise, that always stuck in my mind. Even though I never wanted to be a pro wrestler, they were both the ones where I went like, huh, this is how this is supposed to be done. The first one was Lord Steven Regal wrestled Ric Flair on like a WCW morning show in like 1994. And they pretty much did a Europeans rounds match, but they did one round a week. They only wrestled 5 minutes, but it was straightforward wrestling for those 5 minutes. And every week they did another round. And I was like, this is something different. And was always something that stuck in my mind. I'm like, I don't know why, but I really like that stuff more than this others. I mean, when you're young, wrestling is wrestling, everything you love, right? But that was the first thing that I was like, oh, this might be something else. And then the other one was I went to All Pro Wrestling's King of Indies tournament in 2001. And the first match that was on there that I saw the night that I went to the second night. The first match was American Dragon Bryan Danielson versus Doug Williams. And to be sitting there and seeing that in person, Dragon was only like 20 at the time too. But watching those two wrestle, you're like, oh, this is how it's supposed to be done.
Yeah.
Because it was just a completely different. So those two things always stuck in my mind. So when I did get drafted into wrestling, it was like, okay, this is kind of the way I think it should be going, because those were the things that were always in my head. So
incredible. That's awesome. So obviously you've broken into the business then, and you've had quite an illustrious career throughout. I've had to write a lot of these down. So it's Supreme Pro Wrestling, All Pro Wrestling, Progress Wrestling over here in the UK, West Side Extreme Wrestling, and Evolve. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you are the second and last man to simultaneously hold the Evolve and Open the Freedom Gate Championships after one Drew McIntyre.
That is correct. Yes, sir.
Which is incredible, which is quite a feat. That's impressive. So how then you end up in the WWE in 2020? How did that call come about to now join the biggest wrestling promotion and company in the world?
Well, thankfully, a lot of very good people have always looked out for me in my pro wrestling adventure, and I'm very grateful for all of them. Mr. Regal, I did a tryout for WWE in 2012, and Mr. Regal took a liking to me. I don't know why, but I'm very grateful for it. And he always stayed in contact with me. And then finally in 2020, it became, hey, when do you want to start working here? Oh, okay. And thank goodness that I did, because at the time I was working Europe pretty much consistently. I pretty much moved to Germany for 2017, 18, and a good portion of 19. And Europe was where I wanted to wrestle. WXW was my home in Germany. It was a great place. Wonderful friends, wonderful company. I just really liked my life there. And obviously there I wrestled all over the UK and all this stuff as well, because proximity wise. So that's where the progress comes from, OTT in Ireland, many places, wonderful places too at the time, especially at that time. It was really good then. So I didn't, I always saw myself as a wandering man through life. But thankfully, when Mr. Regal contacted me and I started working for WWE in February of 2020, and then March is when COVID happened.
Yeah.
So I am so grateful for them that I was there, because, as I said, I worked internationally. So I don't know what would have happened if I had not been with them in 2020. I would have been in a very bad state. So I'm very grateful. Mr. Regal was always very kind to me, and I'm very grateful that that's when my time in NXT began. So yeah, strange how life works sometimes.
It is very strange. You could even borderline call it fate, maybe even.
Yeah.
Definitely. So you mentioned NXT, and there you had some very good programs with now Future and a couple main talents on the roster now. So Matt Riddle, Damian Priest, and Tommaso Ciampa. Yet you released it. How did you, before we get to that, how did you find your time in NXT, and what was it like working with that talent? Even I believe a match with Finn Balor as well occurred. What was that like, and who were the people there that enhanced your knowledge of the business there now that you are in the developmental region of it?
Yeah. I mean, everyone there is so helpful. And once again, very wonderful people were more kind to me than I think I ever deserved. And that continued when I worked for NXT. A lot of people, a lot of very good people looked out for me. And even down the line after they decided to switch directions and they wanted a younger crop of talent, which I am not. I was at the time, but they were still nice enough to go like, he knows stuff. So they kept me around for 6 more months as an assistant coach. And I ended up being Norman Smiley's assistant coach. And Norman Smiley has been training for them since 2008, I believe, and like incredible wealth of knowledge. So when I was around him after I had done wrestle for NXT, I was, as I said, we're just helping all the beginners, trying to get them up and going. It was just an incredible experience to be around him all the time. And plenty of people. Finley was there all the time, and he's the top coach. Whenever they wanted someone ready, they sent him to Fit Finley. And when Fit Finley was the agent for anything that you did, he was brilliant. Terry Taylor was there, great mind. So many people. Like, yeah, Shawn Mike. When I first started, before COVID happened, I was in Shawn Michaels' class, and Shawn Michaels would go, and his class consisted of watching matches and then him going over his thought process of them and what it should be and what it shouldn't be and how to do. Incredible experiences, right? All these people, and then Mr. Regal always being around, and once again, as I said, always kind to me and being there. A good friend of mine, whose shirt I'm wearing actually, Hideki Suzuki, became a coach there, and me and him were in charge of like the open ring there to if anyone wanted to come, and a lot of times people wouldn't come, so me and him would wrestle each other for an hour and a half, and what a learning experience that was. So it was. I am very grateful for my time in NXT, and Coach Bloom too. Like he's the head of the PC, and like he has so many responsibilities, but still he's overseeing everything, and he takes care of the people, and he looked out for me as well, and I'm forever grateful. There are too many people to list because it was a very good experience, and yeah, they are the top, especially Finn Balor is obviously one of the top wrestlers I've ever shared the ring with. And Mr. Riddle was interesting because I had started when we were in Evolve. I was one of his first big things that he ever did in independent wrestling was our feud that we had in Evolve. So to come back around when NXT happened, and now he was the one that had been there for a bit, and he was helping me now be introduced to the audience is one of those interesting full circle things. Who else? Tommaso Ciampa. Tommaso is. I wrestled him a couple of times on the Indies, and we had a couple of run-ins there. But when we had our feud, and then we became a tag team, that gave me more life in that place, and because he had already built such a name and using his talent and incredible promo, man. Like when we were doing promos together, Tim, you want to say anything? No, because you're saying all the good stuff. You go ahead and say whatever you need to say. I will say one line and look funny. No problem. But that's all we need to do because he could, so just incredible talents that went through there. And still are going through there as well.
So obviously, then we touched on it. You released then after the 6-month coaching role in January 2022. Before you get to that, and as you say, they decide to change direction. Were there ever plans for you to potentially enter the main roster, or was it still you're just waiting to see when your card gets pulled, and it's your
No,
time?
I believe it was give this man a coaching job, which was kind of the idea, I think, perhaps when I was hired in the first place, because I I was an older man at the time when I got signed originally, right? So unless you set the world on fire, it's kind of like he's here to help the young ones come up, teach them, give them reps, understand, which no problem. I understand completely. Like 100%. There are certain things that translate very well on TV and certain things that don't. And there's certain things that WWE holds near and dear and certain things they don't. So I completely understand. It's their go. So I think once I was transitioned to coach, that's where I was going to be. I was there to wrestle the beginners. We're trying to help them get to where they need to, so then they can learn from more people and higher up. I was there as the base point to start them off and get them reps and get them start being comfortable in the ring, and then you pass them on to the more knowledgeable individuals that make them TV stars. So, yeah, main roster. I don't think was ever in my future, sir, even when I signed originally. So
shame, because it was like you say, you and Ciampa were a very good team. So, and you had a very good old school style, which would have been really interesting to see, especially with some of the more technical wrestlers now. Would have been pretty cool to see. But was there ever talk of extending your coaching there, or was it this is just a 6-month and then you knew, right, I'm off and onto new adventures as such?
Well, it was the coaching part was what I thought I had, because I had a year left on my contract after that. So I thought I was going to do the coaching for another year because I had been switched over into that. So I thought they were going to just change the setup of that. But they ended up, as I said, that day that I got fired, they fired over half the coaching staff. They cleared house on that. And also Mr. Regal got fired that day. I always say, like, on that day, the people that went out that day was Mr. Regal, my good friend Hideki Suzuki, people like Samoa Joe, Ace Steel, both Armstrong brothers, Scott and Road Dogg. Like, the list of people that went out on that day, I was like, well, if I'm going to go out, that's the list to go out on, because, like, yeah, why not? Like, there was some other list that went out that if I was on that list, you'd be like, ooh, maybe it's over. Maybe, but that's a good list to go out on. If those are the people they're getting rid of, and those are the people that you're listed along with, okay, that's okay. No problem. You guys enjoy. Thank you so much for your time. I'll go to another adventure now. Thank you.
An illustrious list, very much so.
Yeah.
So you're now in Pro Wrestling Noah.
Yes,
How are you finding your time there? And what's next for you in the promotion after, I believe, last September losing the tag titles to Good Looking Guys? What's on the cards for you in Noah, and what have you got your eyes set on going in 2024?
I was very grateful to end up in Pro Wrestling Noah. I tried to get to Japan for the longest time of my pro wrestling adventure, and it took me getting hired and fired by WWE before I finally got there. So when I came into Noah too, it seemed like it was the right thing. The wrestlers that were there, and just how they viewed wrestling, and it was incredible. I was like, yeah, this is where I should have been wrestling for a long time, you know. So yeah, I enjoy my time very much in Japan. It's very difficult being away from home, away from my wife for that long, but balance is key in life, right? So when you're there, I'm working, but then when I'm home, I get to be home, which is a very nice thing. Yeah, we lost the belts to Good Looking Guys. We just had a rematch to them. Myself and Saxon Huxley just had a rematch on March 17th. which we also did not win, sadly. But yeah, but currently the group I'm part of is called Real in Pro Wrestling Noah with Saxon Huxley, who is a wonderful Englishman,
Yeah.
and Shuhei Taniguchi, who is a Noah veteran.
Mm-hmm.
And we're trying to run roughshod over Noah. And so the tag titles are always in our view because that's our main focus. And maybe we'll get Taniguchi the GHC National Championship. I think that's the focus. But we try to cause pandemonium in Noah, which a little different style wrestling than I do every place else. But it's interesting how life goes, right? Certain
Yeah,
places bring
definitely.
certain things out of you, sir.
Exactly, definitely. And it is a very tough promotion. And that leads nicely rolling into this coming Thursday, running roughshod over Noah. When did the call come from Mr. Barnett and to get you onto Bloodsport X? And yeah, how did that come about to join a very illustrious card?
Well, thankfully, Mr. Barnett is one of those other people that have been incredibly kind to me and shared his time and knowledge with me for no reason whatsoever. But it's very nice to have because I've known him too as well since 2012. We went, myself, Jeff Cobb, and JR Kratos went down and just did a seminar with him. And we didn't tell him that we were pro wrestlers. We just showed up. We just did the seminar. And he's looking at us like, are you guys pro wrestler? Yeah. He's like, no, it's great. I love all that stuff and all this. So like stayed in contact with him too. And I used to go down and train on a regular basis. And Kratos and I ended up in one of his fight camps for one of his UFC fights one time, which was insane. What how that happened, I don't know. But I got my ass kicked really bad. But these are the things that you do because this is how you learn, right? You get
Yeah.
battered and you figure out around it. So I've known Mr. Barnett for a very long time. Thankfully, it was the first time I met Hideki Suzuki was Josh Barnett's first Bloodsport that he did. We had a match against each other, and that was the first time that we had ever met. And the bond that you have when you have matches with certain people is very interesting. I don't know how to explain it, but there is something about it. There's the connection of professional wrestling it's a very strong one. And that's when me and Hideki Suzuki kind of connected after our match for that. And then then he became a coach and we spent more time together. But yeah, I've been on a good amount of them. I was on the first one and the second one, but then I was in WWE for a good block of the middle one, and then I came back. 2022 did one. Last year I wrestled Mr. Barnett on the show, and then this year, this year is against the Axeman, Axel Tischer, who I haven't wrestled since 2012. Germany WXW would have an ambition tournament, which was along the same rules of Bloodsport and knockout submission only. They didn't take the ropes down. You had rope escapes in that one. And the first time I ever wrestled for WXW, I wrestled Axeman in the finals of the ambition tournament. I think that was only their third time they did it. So we have quite the bit of history as well. So I've known him for quite a long time. So it'll be interesting to finally have another go against him. He's got some coming. I have a rematch in 12 years in the making coming back. So he won the first one. Let's see what happens this time.
Looking forward to it. So it's going to be a brilliant card. And I'm absolutely stoked for it. And I can't wait to see a match with Tisha. It'll be a very, very tough battle. So yeah, but again, thank you for your time. We're reaching our limit. It's already passed that quick. So yeah, thank you very much, sir. I really appreciate the time, and I cannot wait to see Bloodsport on Thursday, and hopefully we'll have a chat in the near future to go in more depth about your quite illustrious career.
Yes, sir. Please. Thank you, sir. You're the one doing all the work. I'm just sitting here rambling. So you're the one that's got to figure out how to put this all together and make people want to see it. So, thank you, sir. But
I will work my magic somehow. So yeah, again, thank you very much. And I wish you all the best. Thank you very much, and I will keep an eye out and be in touch very soon with you. So, real
Wonderful.
quick before we go, where can people find you?
They
On social media.
cannot find me,
Oh,
but I do my best to not be found. So I have no social media. If you see anything that has my name on it, it is not me. So good luck with that. Yeah. Right now, Pro Wrestling Noah, please, their streaming service is Wrestle Universe. Please support Bloodsport. I know the show is sold out, but I believe Triller TV Plus is
yep.
how you can watch that event. So please do that. Please support professional wrestling. I'm a wandering man. I like to ride into town, have a match, and then ride on out. So please, if you see that, please come to the event, because I believe professional wrestling, if you can go see it live and in person, be in the building, that's the best way to experience it. So please go out and watch professional wrestling. That's what I have to say.
And we're going to end it on them absolutely perfect words. So again, thank you very much for your time, sir, and look forward to chatting soon.
Wonderful. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye-bye.